All right, this is a special edition of the By Any Means Necessary Bronson Fantasy Basketball edition, I guess. This really doesn't relate to fantasy basketball at all, really. For those of you who've been paying attention, I did say that I was inspired to do a fake expansion draft for the NBA after watching the Seattle Kraken's very exciting expansion draft there at Gasworks Park and all that stuff. I'm excited to have some hockey, some professional hockey in the Pacific Northwest. I think a lot of other people are here as well. I think this culture is really going to embrace the NHL, and I'm glad that they chose Seattle for their new team. And I think we got some good players from what I know, from what I've heard from people who know hockey. So that's great. I'm probably going to get a little bit more into hockey and start attending some hockey games because I have gone to a Winterhawks game here in Portland, and honestly, even though I don't really care for hockey, that was absolutely the best environment, sporting event that I've ever attended. And I don't know why I never went back, especially now that I live here. But man, yeah, the atmosphere at a hockey game or hockey match is unprecedented in sports, I would say. So I'm happy to have them here. But I finished my fake mock expansion draft. So here are the rules I kind of made for myself, the breakdown of it. Every team got to protect 8 players, basically, plus all rookies were exempt. So the teams that had more rookies had more protected players and less players for me to choose from. I chose one unprotected player from each of the 30 teams, and then I split those 30 players up into 2 different rosters of 15 players each. With no real I know that most expansion drafts kind of have an order from which a first pick to third pick. I didn't really bother with any of that. I just kind of split it up as best I could by positions. Each team has 5 guards, 7 forwards, and 3 centers. It's just the way that it worked out. I really didn't go into the mock draft coordinated on how many players I was going to pick at each spot. I just took the player that I liked the most, given my limited options, and at the end I kind of organized them by position, and I was like, oh, I kind of have less here than I wanted, but oh well. So then I split it as evenly as I could at the end. I awarded 2 expansion teams to 2 cities that I really feel like if the NBA were to expand, these are the 2 most likely destinations. Both are in the Western Conference, so that would create some realignment. I assume that New Orleans would go back to the Eastern Conference, since that's kind of originally where they started. And I think a team like Memphis or someone like that would probably end up also going to the East, because Memphis is the easternmost Western Conference city, so that would make the most sense geographically. The cities are Seattle, obviously. There's a lot of talk of the Supersonics coming back, and Las Vegas. I almost chose Columbus, Ohio, just because Columbus is one of those cities that's really grown exponentially in the last 20-30 years. It's a top 15 city population-wise, and I kind of wanted to do one East, one West, but ultimately I just went with the 2 most likely cities, that's Seattle and Las Vegas, as expansion teams. So both will be in the Western Conference, for those who care. And what else was I going to say? I tried to keep the rosters as realistic as I could. I don't obviously know. I obviously won't be if there were to be an expansion draft. I'm sure this will not be 100%. I'm probably wrong on a lot of people. I think the teams would protect. I wouldn't protect, but I tried to do the best I could. I was not unrealistic. I didn't or even with the free agents, because I know Kyle Lowry, Kawhi Leonard, these guys could potentially be free agents this year, and I knew they weren't going to sign with an expansion team, so I didn't even consider them as possible choices. But I did take a couple of free agents that were kind of fringe roster guys who I think would happily accept an offer from an expansion team, because it would provide them an opportunity to really blossom and get a featured role. So, and those free agent picks did count as the picks from the team from which they played for last year. So that's pretty much the 5-minute rundown of the rules. Let's get to the rosters here. Starting with, we're going to start with Seattle just because that's, I would be giddy should the Supersonics come back. I wish they never left. I wish Oklahoma City would be a team getting an expansion team right now, having to start from scratch, but whatever. I'll be giddy if the Sonics return. So the Sonics, 15 players for the Sonics. Starting with the guards, 5 guards. We got Gary Payton II from the Warriors. He was the Warriors pick. Returns to the city that his father had such a glorious run in. Perfect opportunity for Gary Payton Jr. Or Gary Payton II, should I say Jr. Other guards, Jeremiah Martin, two-way player for the Cavaliers, a guy I think has some potential. He's a guy that I liked. Jalen Knoll, Seattle native. He's the Wolves pick. David Nwaba, a combo guard from the Rockets. And PJ Dozier, another combo guard, was drafted from the Nuggets. That's Seattle's 5 guards. No true point guard on the roster, really a lot of combo guys, but positional versatility in a positionless NBA as it transitions more and more into that in the future is probably a good thing, a good start, a good foundation for Seattle. For the centers, 3 centers, DeMarcus Cousins from the Clippers. I'm banking on DeMarcus Cousins returning to maybe not the star level player he was before, but a player that could be a featured part of an offense for an expansion team. Willie Hernangomez, free agent from the Pelicans. I think he would welcome the opportunity to potentially be a starter on an expansion team. And Goga Bitadze from the Pacers. He's a young center that I really like. He just isn't getting an opportunity. He's blocked in Indiana behind Sabonis and Miles Turner. I think Seattle or any expansion team would be a chance for him to blossom. For the forwards, I've got 3 power forwards, 4 wings. For the power forwards, Jalen McDaniels from the Hornets gets to return to his hometown of Seattle. Zach Collins from the Blazers. I had a tough choice between the Blazers options, but ultimately I went with Zach Collins. I think that I think Portland's definitely ready to move on from him, but I think there's still a lot of potential there if he could ever get healthy. An expansion team is the perfect opportunity for him. Very high reward, very low risk for an expansion team to take on. And Thanasis Antetokounmpo, Giannis's older brother, has really showed glimpses of his talent and potential, but he also is blocked in Milwaukee. I think that going to an expansion team, again, as is the theme here, I'm going with a lot of high upside young guys who are giving them a chance to blossom here. For the wings, Troy Brown of the Bulls. He's a guy I've really liked ever since his college days. I don't know why it hasn't worked out for him, but he is from Oregon, so he has those ties to the Pacific Northwest already. I think that would help draw in some fans. KZ Okpala from the Heat. He can play shooting guard or small forward. Definitely multi-positional versatility there. He's another guy who hasn't really gotten the opportunity in Miami, but an expansion team could be just the opportunity for him. Justice Winslow from the Grizzlies. I think he's a guy I could potentially see the Grizzlies actually keeping in a real expansion draft. He would be a guy they would protect. But in this scenario, he was unprotected. And, Memphis was another tough choice. I had between Justice Winslow and I don't even remember who the other player was now, but I wanted them both, and I was wishing I could adapt the rules to where I could take 2 from each team from that team, but ultimately we went with Justice Winslow, and I think the expansion team is going to be a great place for him. And lastly, Stanley Johnson from the Raptors, a former University of Arizona guy who was a stud in high school, a one and done who just for whatever reason hasn't panned out in the pros. If he can provide some veteran leadership and maybe an expansion team would be just the opportunity he needs to find his confidence. Moving on to Las Vegas now. Again, 5 guards for them, 3 centers and 7 forwards. Starting with the guards, Tremont Waters, Celtics pick. I think he's a guy who deserves another opportunity, a bigger opportunity somewhere. Expansion team would provide that. Dennis Smith from the Pistons. Another young guy who showed glimpses when he was in Dallas, but for whatever reason, no team that he's played for since has really had any faith in him. So an expansion team would be the perfect chance for him to blossom. Shake Milton from the 76ers, I think he's shown that he can be a productive player off the bench in the pros, so he can potentially be a player who can be a featured part of the offense early on. Ben McLemore from the Lakers, he's a guy I've always really liked. Another guy I don't understand why it hasn't worked out for him in the pros. I guess he's not the greatest shooter, but I think athletically he can hold his own, and an expansion team would be an opportunity for him to provide some better leadership. And Javon Carter from the Suns, a guy who's not going to get any playing time in Phoenix anytime soon, so his defensive tenacity could really provide some good quality minutes for an expansion team. Moving on to the centers, probably the most surprising left unprotected player I think here is now about to get revealed. Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks opted in this scenario not to protect Mitchell Robinson, and he was gobbled up in the expansion draft. I think he definitely has some star potential now that he's in the perfect scenario for him. Derek Favors, veteran from the Jazz. He can also play power forward. Derek Favors was a very high draft pick, a star, really. It just, for whatever reason, he kind of just plateaued in the NBA. He's still a very serviceable big man, still a very serviceable player. No reason to hate on him. Utah has a very good roster. They had to leave someone exposed. Derek Favors just happened to be one of them, and I think that he would be a guy that, given my options, I liked him best. Mo Wagner from the Magic also getting exposed and picked here in this scenario. For the forwards, moving on. Now, Dallas, Nicolo Melli, technically a second-year player, but really he's like 30 years old. He would be a veteran presence on this team. I didn't really like anybody from Dallas. I didn't have a whole lot of options, really. But I had to pick somebody. Nicolo Melli is the one that I settled on. Isaiah Roby from the Thunder at power forward, and Elise Johnson from the Nets. Elise Johnson's a young guy. I really think that if he had the opportunity, he could really be a scoring machine. So an expansion team will definitely provide him with that possibility. Moving on to the wings, Chandler Hutchinson from the Wizards. There's no reason to like Chandler Hutchinson. He hasn't done anything in his pro career. It wasn't even, I don't think he was that outstanding in college. I'm not sure how he was a first-round pick, but there's something about him that just tantalizes me on a personal level. So he was the easy expansion draft pick for me. I think there's some untapped potential there, and if he could ever figure it out, he could be something in this league. An expansion team will give him as many minutes as he can handle. Daquan Jeffries from the Spurs, another wing who kind of came out of nowhere, has been productive in limited minutes. He could be an expanded role with an expansion team, could really be great for his career. Solomon Hill from the Hawks. Again, I didn't like any of the Hawks options. Solomon Hill's a veteran guy who can provide you help both forward spots, and he happens to be a University of Arizona alum, so I was kind of partial to him given my options. And lastly, Louis King, another guy from Oregon. He is the pick from the Kings. A guy who definitely left school too early, probably isn't really cut out for the NBA, but an expansion team will give him an opportunity to, give him an opportunity, and we'll see, and we'll settle whether he is going to have an NBA career or not. So that's it, I guess. Tell me what you think. Tell me which roster you like better. Personally, I'm impartial to the Seattle roster a little bit more. I'm probably a little biased. I probably gave that a little bit stronger of a lineup than I think. But I think for star potential, I think Vegas for Mitchell Robinson and Dennis Smith, possibly Elise Johnson. I think they got a lot more star potential there. But overall roster, top to bottom depth, I like Seattle's better. But you go ahead and tell me what you think, or just whatever, because it's all completely made up and worthless anyway. But yeah, whatever. Love a nacho fries.